Salam everyone, welcome back to Hazawi podcast. My guest in this episode is Abdulrahman Bindamnan. He moved to the United States from Yemen in 2016 after winning an international scholarship through the Hadhramout Foundation. He is a writer and he arrived here with the goal to start university without a word of English. He attended University of Miami first, where he got his BA in psychology and religion, which we talk about in the podcast. Then he got his master's degree from Penn Graduate School for Education. We talk about the zero generation college student experience, which is a term that he actually coined. And we also talk about the upbringing he experienced in Yemen and the challenges as an international student, the gap between Eastern and Western style of education, and his future studies as a PhD student. Abdurrahman was one of those people and is one of those people that I can talk to for hours. I really enjoyed the conversation with him. I hope you enjoy it as well. Thank you for listening and keep on creating. All right, we're on. Abdulrahman Bindamnan, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. So we can start by some light questions around when you hear the word Hazawi, what comes to mind?
Yeah, when I hear the word Hazawi, I think you're talking about stories. It's a weird Arabic word. I never use it myself, but that's how I would understand it. Maybe Hazwa is the singular, Hazawi is the plural. So stories, maybe.
Can you remember the last time you heard it?
It's actually the first time I'm hearing it.
Oh, and you know what it means. That's amazing.
I just took a guess.
Yeah, well, you got it right. It's a word that we use. Maybe I know people from South Yemen, they use it as well. I'm from Ib, so we use it a lot, and
It's a slang, though.
it is a slang, and it means stories, and sometimes it's used to like, it is used to decrease the value of whatever you're trying to say. So someone will come with a story that's like totally fictional. I win and I fought this guy and I beat up this guy, whatever. And then, the typical response will be, oh, this is just Hazawi, they're just fictional stuff.
Okay.
But they're also, they also, it's also used to refer to like tales from like, from back in the days, which are no longer
yeah.
like recorded. Yeah. What did you have for breakfast today?
For breakfast. So I live in Miami, and I usually go to a restaurant I discovered recently. They sell good eggs and potatoes. So that's what I
Good.
ate for breakfast.
That's your protein and carbs. Do you drink coffee?
Yeah, I do drink coffee. I have to.
Yeah, same here. Same here. At least in the morning for me. I can skip
Right.
on the midday, but the morning is a must. Um, can you give the audience a snapshot of yourself? You can start from like where you grow up, and how was it growing up there?
So I grew up in Yemen, in the South Yemen or Hadhramout, and grew up in a very Muslim devout family. My father was the imam of a mosque, big mosque on our city. So I very much like was in the mosque since my early days. I memorized the Quran when I was young too. Was leading the mosque there, like around the age of 14. If I didn't leave Yemen, I'll be like a sheikh right there. Because it runs in the family,
Yeah.
But in high school, and I wasn't also a good student. I was like a mediocre student. I used to run from school, used to make a lot of trouble. I was a difficult child to manage. Really. And then it's only in high school, the last year, where I said, you know what? I need to take school seriously. I don't know why I made that decision, but now in retrospect, I was like, I just like didn't like. So all the previous years, I would be like in the middle of the class, never the top of the class. And just decided I said I'm going to take school seriously. So In high school, I just went very hard on it, study all the time, attend classes, taking things seriously, and it paid off. So I became the first student or the second ranked student in Yemen, which is why I got a scholarship to come to the US. Um, so when I came to the US, though, it was like a major event in my life. Um, so that you have now division my life in Yemen, 2 decades to almost like 19 years, and then my life in the US, which up to this point 6 years.
Mm.
These two lives, they don't talk together. I'm
Yeah,
trying to make them talk, but that point I would say is central. And the block that's right there is the climax. So now I'm trying to see how
yeah.
the story will goes.
Yeah, to give some context, you studied in Yemen, and then you got a scholarship through Hadhramout Foundation, and you to come to the U.S. and continue education. Was the scholarship a goal for you when you what was it part of that turning point where you took school more seriously, or was that something that you found, at the end of that journey?
I assume it has to do with it because I also got the scholarship from the Yemeni government.
Mm.
So I was like, because of the Hadhramout Foundation in particular, I saw some student went to Canada, and I once saw a documentary, and maybe that has something to do with it. That I said, well, I might take school seriously to see where I can go with my future.
So what was the goal? Just to like move to Canada or the United States and figure it out, or was there something in mind?
No, I to be honest with you, I really don't know what the reason was, but I remember the moment I decided. Maybe something like, I was not doing well in school and I said, I need to be serious about this whole business. And I actually like I was sitting with myself and took a pen and paper and I wrote a goal. And I said in last year of high school, this will be a different year and I'll be a different student because I was like a very troubling student. I would like, before school ends, I'll be out. And
Yeah,
sometime I'll make noise in the class. So I was a troubling student. And maybe age has to do with it. I just said, now is the time to change. Different factors, but I wouldn't say that documentary was like the catalyst point. It was just like among so many factors.
yeah. And so, you take high school seriously, you apply to the scholarship, you get it. Now you're in the
Mhm.
United States. What was your expectations? What was your first few days, weeks here?
Yeah. So when I got the scholarship, my father said, "No, no, you can't go to the U.S. They're like the land of the believers, of the disbelievers. Like, and we don't know anybody there, right? We don't know anybody there. And the scholarship only started sending like 5, 10 students 2014, and this is I was in 2015. The war in Yemen started. So at first, I didn't know anything about the U.S. I didn't know what the capital is. I don't know anyone there.
Wow.
And then all I knew is a couple of students from the scholarship, and they tried like to give me admission to an English institute. And then I tried to apply. The war in Yemen couldn't get to the embassy. Long story short, I had to go to Saudi Arabia. It was a long process. Like I waited, I think, 2 years to come to the US.
Wow. And did
Yeah, it's a common Yemeni story. Like
yeah.
you have to go to Saudi. Took 6 months to get the visa there. Get there, apply for the American visa, got rejected twice. Only the third time works.
So the getting the visa is very different than the sponsorship of the scholarship. They don't do that work for you.
No, 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 no. The US embassy, uh, they are not transparent. Like, so I had my I-20, everything set. I do to the interview. After the interview, they tell you either you accepted or rejected.
Yeah,
Twice they rejected me, and then they didn't tell you any reason. I have
yeah,
funding and I have everything. So, man, It's not clear as why they reject or accept you. Then the third time, I just kept trying. The third time it worked.
And what was your thinking process in between those two rejections? Did you think about just going back to Hadramaut and call
I
it
was in
quits?
Saudi, so I was thought maybe I could matriculate in a university there because my brother studied there. Um, but I didn't want to study in Saudi Arabia because, like I said at that point, I already have a scholarship to study in the United States, so I might just use that and go and discover that part of the world. So I just kept trying until it worked.
Where were you in Saudi?
It was in Jeddah and Riyadh, alternating between the two.
Yeah. So you get accepted, or your visa goes through, and you come to the United States. When was that?
Yeah, so I entered the United States in May 5th, 2016.
And what was that like?
Oh man, I was so my English at the time wasn't good. So when I came to the airport, couldn't speak. So I told the guy I need a translator, and they brought me a translator. So I was nervous as hell, as they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I came to the U.S. Airport, and then went to Mississippi, of all places.
Why?
I don't know. My I-20, I got admission from Mississippi College.
Okay.
And I don't know, I had an expectation of what the US would look like, but it has nothing to do with Mississippi.
Was it like New York City?
Oh yeah. Something like New York City, Washington, Mississippi. Like I said, when I got there, I said, man, what did I return to Yemen or what? There's no life, like long roads. It was like a surprise. And then people there was like speaking with the southern accent. I didn't know
Yeah.
what they're talking about. So that was also a little bit difficult. I didn't understand how people speak with their southern accent. So I stayed there 2 months only in Mississippi. There's a lot of Yemeni community there too.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because it's cheap, easy tuition, and they have like a couple of stores. So a lot of Yemeni there in Mississippi.
And still, the business is grocery stores.
Yeah, the business is grocery stores, and the student will like work in the grocery store and get to the university. Cheap tuition, everything is cheap. So
Yeah.
they use that as a place to settle down, and then they move to other states.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then what came after Mississippi?
Yeah, so I Mississippi. So maybe I should tell you this up front. So since I came to the U.S., I felt like I was behind before I even came. Like, so I'm very competitive. And then when I came here, I already said now I'm already delayed 2 years. Because I got the scholarship, got like delays by the visa to get out of Yemen, get rejected. It all like 2 years. I said, wow, this is a waste of time. So I'm already behind. So I said, I cannot spend more than 2 months in English. I just need to get the IELTS done, get to the university. So when I get to Mississippi, I was focusing to get admitted at any school. So then I was able to get at the University of Miami because of connections.
Right. So the scholarship, they just facilitate for you to come to the States.
Yeah.
Everything else you have to do, even the admission office to
No. They were helping us. They had an office.
Okay.
They
Okay.
had an office. They had an office. But I like annoyed the office so much because like I told them I need an admission like in 2 months, which is like unreasonable because that takes time.
Yeah.
But they were able to call the University of Miami all last minute. And then they got me admitted in the fall of 2016. Because as I said, like I felt like I was behind and I need to catch up and get going.
So you came here, stayed for 2 months, and then you're in university right away.
Yeah.
How was your English at that time?
Not good. But just I did the IELTS and I got like 6.5,
What is
which is
that?
like the IELTS. You never heard of the IELTS?
I
The
very little.
TOEFL.
I
Have you
know
heard
the
of the
TOEFL.
TOEFL?
I know. I heard the TOEFL.
So the IELTS, you can think of it as the British equivalent of the TOEFL.
I see.
So it's a standardized proficiency exam. I took it, and most people, it's hard exam, tricky. You know, it's like the GRE, the SAT. It has a
Right.
lot of tricks to it. I was able to get 6.5, which is not an impressive score, but it was the requirement of the University of Miami. So they worked.
And that's out of 10.
No, I was out of 9.
Okay.
So the TOEFL is out of 120. The IELTS is out of 9. So I got 6.5. Most universities accept 6.5.
And so you moved from Mississippi. You moved to Miami at this point.
Right.
And what was that transition like?
The transition was to the University of Miami. It was my English wasn't that good at the time. And to be honest with you, also in Miami is a wild city. I'm still in Miami. But I was like still in the Yemeni mentality at the university. So I didn't go to parties, didn't go to anything. I was
Okay.
missing out on all these good things.
Okay.
Really, that's what happened because I was like conservative. But I told you I was raised in the mosque. So I said, no, no, all these like sexy girl. I said, no, I need to just focus on my class. And there was a lot of Arab students, even from Yemen. And
Yeah.
they were liberal. So they would go to these events and try to have fun. But me, I was serious. I said, no, no, I can't do that. And so it was a tough transition
Yeah.
because I was not on the right place given my way of thinking.
Right.
You
What
see, I should have stayed in Mississippi.
what you think attending those various events would have made it easier for you?
In retrospect, if the time goes back, I think I would like there is a phrase that I like that said, "What you regret the chances you didn't take," something like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, I would say I probably would do better if I just try things out and see that and then judge. But
Right.
for me, I came programmed, and then I say, I cannot do this. I cannot without trying them out.
And you were like what, 20, 21 at that point or
Yeah,
younger?
20.
20. Yeah. And so you what was your major in Miami University?
Yeah, majored in psychology and also in religion.
What made you choose psychology?
Yeah, what made me switch psychology? That's a good question. I think I like for a long time. I Yeah. So it's one way to put this. For a long time, I have been with myself, trying to understand myself. So I want a major that will help me to do that. And psychology seems to be a suitable one. And then religion, I just I had a lot of interest in religion, and so I said I need to study that as well.
Did psychology help you understand yourself?
I would say not really. Uh,
Yeah, no, I was expecting that because I also majored in psychology, and I can't remember why I chose that major. I also went through like a wild ride choosing my major because I have thought that I was gonna become a doctor and majored
hmm,
in chemistry and biology for a bit, but couldn't do well in those classes, and then I had to choose a major because at some point in New York City, and I'm not sure if it was the case in Miami, if you do not choose your major after a certain point, and I think it's after your third semester or so, um, you sort of like lose funding. Like it just it becomes life becomes very hard for you if you don't choose a major. So you have to choose a major. And so psychology was one of them. I also double major with sociology. But to look back at it right now, I should have done something. I mean, maybe those majors helped me just navigate research and understand people, understand like societal like norms, whatever. Um, but right, sometimes I wish I could have done more like writing focus majors.
Mm,
But then I didn't become interested in writing the way I am interested in it right now until later. So yeah.
interesting. Yeah, but I chose psychology, yeah, because I wasn't so yeah, I wasn't so I always had something to work on with myself. I mean, it's true with the most people. And yeah, I wasn't happy with myself, maybe is the right word, is the right
Mm.
phrase. You know, I always like have something, I have an ideals, but I'm not achieving them. And so that's why I wanted to study psychology to try to understand what's going on, motivations, goals, behaviors, and all these good things. I studied psychology and then I didn't like it because it's American based.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this critique a lot of people say about this psychology in the US. They study like American participant and then they want to talk about psychology for all people.
Yeah.
So I didn't connect with it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't
Yeah.
connect with it. Yeah, and religion also. I didn't like how they study it, but because yeah, there's a lot of issues with academia, and with religious studies, it's also like geared for again for American students. Like my interest, I would come to the class and I want to study certain things, but then we will not end up discussing them. You see what
Can
I'm
you
saying?
can you think of an example?
Can I think of? Yeah, I can think of a lot of example. So, for example, when it comes to religious classes, I was like trying to understand Islam, right? The way they study it itself, the methodology, it's just very different than the traditional way, right? You're not gonna read the scholars, the syllabus. If you start with the syllabus, it's right there. Like the scholars that you read, are all like academic scholars, which I guess that's like the expectation, right?
Right.
And but there I felt limited. Like you cannot ask traditional questions in that space.
It's almost like reading about Islam through someone else's eyes.
And their interest doesn't interest me yet. Through their eyes, their concerns are not my concern. Their questions, I don't find them interesting. And I have questions, they don't find them interesting. See, there's always a disconnect.
Right.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Even my professor, he's like, born and raised here, the one who I work with him. And there's such a difference, which is fine. It's a difference, but that creates some kind of disconnect because you're not in the same page, not even the same book. You are in different, you operate in different intellectual spaces.
Yeah. You talked about how when you first came here you were sort of like programmed, which is a very funny way of like putting it because like I exactly know what you mean. Um,
It's
when
not a
did
bad
you?
thing.
No, it is not. It is not. It is not. Is a very practical like real experience because I feel like
Right.
anybody that comes from the outside into a new space that has its own momentum, that has its own like cultural norms, will sort of feel um, the need to guard themselves from whatever is trying to like change them. But then you just get older and then you get reshaped and you should reshape yourself to the person that you become. I don't if I think back of myself when I was 20, I was a totally different person. Um,
If the
but
time goes back, though, as I said, I would do things differently. I'll try this thing out, at that age, and then see for myself.
when were you able to look back at it and think the way you're thinking right now? Was it like 2 years in and you thought, oh, I should have done
Yeah,
this
so
different?
at the University of Miami, I spent almost all most of it on that mentality. It's only when I went to Philadelphia, it's like the changing of cities. Went to UPenn. And so when I was choosing for a master's degree, I was, it's funny, like what was my criteria? So I was studied psychology, so I can go and become a psychologist, but I didn't like psychology because I didn't connect with it. And with religion, I also didn't connect with it that much. And so then I said, what should I study? That's a difficult question because now the things that I study, I found out it's not a solid foundation. I need to study something else. And so my criteria was, which I don't think a lot of people think like that. I said, I need to find a major where I can connect with. So I have an international background and I need to find something that can relate to that. So that's why I chose a program at UPenn. It's called International Education Development. And basically, what they study is they study spaces like Yemen, Somalia, Africa, India, international, not just to the US. And they study education and development topics there. So I said, well, that sounds interesting. And since I came from these backgrounds, my background might be relevant since they are studying people who look like me,
Yeah.
right? But once again, the same thing. Once again, also at UPenn, I didn't connect with the field. Maybe there's something wrong with how I look at things, but I think there's also something wrong with how they study these issues.
Yeah, I want to go in depth with that, but before I do, how did you find out about University of Pennsylvania Graduate Center?
So I was just like in Google
Mm.
writing programs. I like visited the university's department looking for anything that has to do with international or with the Middle Eastern programs. So I was almost gonna go and study that. But the international development sounded interesting the most, and I applied. And I was accepted. Yeah.
So before that, even how did you become interested in writing? Because that's what the program is about.
What program?
The graduate center, the graduate program at Penn,
It wasn't about writing. No, no.
just education.
It is education.
So where
Yeah.
did the
So my
interest?
interest in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, my interest in writing. I can tell you about it. My interest in writing. See, because I got I got interested in writing really because I had issue with public speaking. So I always like had some ideas in my head, and then, well, when I speak, especially in a public setting, I'm not good. I didn't just, I don't know, maybe in the part where I came from, Yemen, but like speaking out is not encouraged. So you're supposed to stay silent. So I wasn't good because didn't practice, didn't have exposure to speaking in public. So I always had ideas in class at the university, but I wouldn't share them because I was shy, maybe you can say.
Yeah.
So then I said, well, I might just need to improve my writing so that I can communicate my ideas through writing, you know, because I could work on public speaking. I did, and I improved in it. But then I just said, I need, because working on writing sounded as more easier to address the public speaking issue because there's a lot. Learning how to speak and overcome the anxiety is challenging. So I said, if I mastered writing and I could just write down what I think and then I can read it out loud, that will help the problem. So my interest in writing was a solution to the public speaking problem.
How did you find out that public speaking was a problem that you wanted to solve? I mean, why not just ignore the problem and just move on to something else?
Oh no, it was that I had to solve it because like in the psychology class it was like you need to talk.
Right.
Like, every day I face it and it's uncomfortable. I had to, so maybe that's another reason why I studied psychology right there. That's one of the issues I had with myself, like public speaking. Why am I part of it is like because I grew up in spaces that doesn't encourage that. But then I'm just now an adult and I need to deal with it.
Something else that I that you remind me of when you talked about public speaking and how it's not encouraged in Yemen. Um, I found it very, very hard to like write personal statements after I arrived here, because the personal statements require you to like talk yourself up, like, I'm this and I'm that, I'm this great and I'm good at this. And in Yemen is a total opposite. You wait for people to praise you or talk um, good things about you, but we're very discouraged from praising ourselves or recognizing our like special talents or skills.
It's true. Yeah, I don't know where it started, but yeah, it's we have that kind of culture. Yeah.
Yeah. um so you go to Pennsylvania, and what was that graduate program like in terms of what you expected and what you experienced?
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I don't like anything, man. I'm sorry, Mohammed, but
No,
it
this is your experience. I'm not.
is my experience. I didn't like it um because like the program, like once again, one phrase you said, through their eyes, right? So when they think of education development and they go to Yemen, they say, oh, we want the local experience of the people and so on and so on, right? But what they do is very different than what they say. Like it's very much their concerns, their interests, their questions, and not what the people really want. And why I'm saying this? Because I came from that space. So I presume I would have some authority.
Right.
Like, all right, I grew up in this space for 19 years. But what you find is that you actually don't have any authority at all. Like, and this is a deep point. But see, like, and this is issue with knowledge production and modernity. You see, so in our program, if you like want to make a point, make an argument, publish a paper, people want to see, okay, who did you cite? What scholar did you cite? So if you want to study Yemen, and just like went and look at what UNESCO wrote, what the UNICEF wrote, and then you picked some true scholars from Harvard, MIT, you probably would get your paper published right away. And you never been to Yemen, you understand Arabic, and yet your argument is valid, and you are the expert of the region. Yeah, and you've never been to the region, and now you could have local knowledge. So what I'm saying is local knowledge is not valued. Really, it's not valued because first of all, if it's valued, there will be a strong emphasis in Arabic, and there wasn't. So you could be speaking Arabic, and that's not a plus. That's not a plus. That's not a plus. And so how can you understand a society if you don't understand the language?
Okay.
You know, like, and there's like, so there's a lot of issues, and then your personal experience, and I think now there are some people who are trying to move into this direction, but your personal experience is not considered like a scientific evidence. You need to have studies, so-called objective studies, empirical studies, but your personal experience, it doesn't amount to that kind of level of what they're looking for. And I didn't like that because, like, when we're talking about development in Yemen, I thought that my experience there will have some sort of insight that should be brought to the table, but it wasn't. If you could read what UNESCO has published and what the some other scholars have said, that's way better. That's way better than what you know from your own experience. Way better.
And the goal of the program is to produce like is it just to produce research on how education is being carried out in places
It's
like
to
Yemen?
improve. It's to improve these countries
And how do they do that? Do they like give
by research,
recommendations?
by policy, by programs. They go there.
So
It's
they
like the World Bank.
Okay. So they is it possible that they would have centers there that carry out their own sort of like
Sometimes,
curriculum?
Sometimes, like, so USAID, all of these development programs that go overseas and try to do development work. Our program is connected with all these organizations, and they are trying to help with the research. And the graduates from that program go and work with these countries, and also the graduates go and live in these countries. So you have a lot of Americans who go to Africa and other countries, and then they come back and continue and doing research back and forth. That's very common.
Did you have like a thesis to write or a research to come up with?
Yeah,
What was it?
we have a master capstone, and I did wrote multiple components of it. One of it was about writing, so that's where I got into writing more in a formalized sense.
What were the other topics that you wrote about?
The other topics I wrote about are not connected at all with writing, but one has to do with race in the U.S. and one has to do with education literacy in Yemen. So education literacy in Yemen, race in the United States, and the writing piece. All of these are like articles that I wrote.
And what was so intriguing about the writing piece that made it like sort of like an overarching interest for you right now?
Yeah, for the writing, uh, so I guess, like, when I came to Penn, I got frustrated by so it's very competitive, and like the students are have better education than me for sure in the English language, you know. So it's like a high expectation. You should know what you're doing, you know, and I wasn't. I just, like, I didn't know. So I got interested in writing out of personal interest because I'm trying to address this issue. So it's interesting to me because it speaks to me in a personal level.
Why not write in Arabic?
Well, you
What
cannot
was
write in Arabic.
so I'm not saying why not write in Arabic for the program, but it's very intriguing to me because I think we have a similar experience. Why not decide to write or explore Arabic writings for Arabic speaking, people in America?
I did write in Arabic and read in Arabic. Um, but then at the end of the day, you need to write in English, right? For the
So
program.
I'm not even talking about the program. I
Oh,
know for the program you have to write like your dissertation or your thesis or whatever it is. It has to be in English. But what I'm asking is about your own interest about the concept of writing and exploring it as a form of expression. Why not?
in Arabic.
Why not rely on Arabic when it's your strong suit or your stronger suit, or is that not the case anymore?
No, 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 no. So, see, back to the point, when I came to the US, so, like, my life was going one direction. Then you got the US thing. There's like a split. Now you got two lives. See, if I continued with the Yemen, I would be in Arabic, writing in Arabic. Now that would be good.
Right.
But you got this split now, got into English, and now I'm trying my best just to excel in this domain, the English one. I cannot excel in both. It's very hard. People barely can be proficient in one domain. So that's why I've ignored the Arabic for a while, because it's not going to generate any benefits to me, right? So I try to express myself in English as much as I can. Try to learn English as much as I can.
Yeah. The reason I asked that question was because I was at a reading once. This was maybe, I would say, 6 months ago. And I was reading one of my stories. I mean, all my stories are unpublished. So when I get a chance to read them at events, I take it because I practice my reading performance skill, and I also see how people will react to it. And
Mm.
that was and the event was organized by Yemeni youth in New York City, and that was the question that was asked once, which was why not write in Arabic, stories in Arabic, because the two or three people before me, writers before me, who like read from their work, they actually read in Arabic and they publish here and sell their books here, um,
In Arabic?
in Arabic. Yeah,
That's interesting.
that's very interesting to me as well, and my experience was the same thing. And when you talk about the two-line split, for me, I had a pivotal moment where I had to decide whether like English was gonna be my, my language of expressing, the stories that I have in my head, or is it gonna be Arabic? And I came here to the States when I was 13, so my Arabic,
You were
like,
lucky.
I was lucky in terms of like my learning process of the language was not as hard as yours. It came a little bit easier, and I had siblings who were younger, and when I speak to them about their learning experience, they can't even remember it. I remember learning English and struggling.
Mm.
You remember even more, but then
Right.
when you're even younger than that, when you're like,
Either, yeah, yeah.
hey, you
Because
can't
your
even,
brain hasn't
your
developed yet.
brain just, yeah, and your brain just consumes all the language as it just become a second nature. So like when I asked my younger brother, he can't remember how he learned English. um but then to go back to the pivotal point, I had to decide whether English or Arabic, and my Arabic was not as strong. um and there was a moment where my Arabic and English were the same, and then my English in terms of like literature and writing and reading, it just became better. But my Arabic's still there. I don't neglect it. I'm still I still
Mm.
try to keep it. I keep engaged, keep it engaged.
You know what I say usually? That when I got into the University of Miami, right now, if I had to redo it with my English skills, way be better. Even UPenn. Like if I started right now I am prepared, but not at that time. You see what I'm saying? Like at that time, I was just still gaining the skills of the language. And it was very hard to do the language and learn the material, you know?
Yeah,
So that's a feeling that I have always.
yeah. I do feel like going through college, because for me that transition was during high school, and high school you can make a lot of mistakes, and there is no high stakes in high school, except for the Regents exams, and the Regents exams are not even that big of a deal.
Yeah, I have wild ideas about this. Like when I was doing my research at UPenn, I said I questioned the whole idea of studying your higher education, undergraduate, graduate, master's, and be doctoral, and all of your previous education you did it in a different language, different culture. It's just like they don't talk to each other. And then I said, who said that is a good idea? Like why not just you went to Arabic schools up to high school, man, go and study in college in Arabic. Like because for me, I was interested in literacy. So how do you become a literate person? Literacy is like levels. So when I started in English, I wasn't academically literate, not at all. Not at all. My reading comprehension wasn't good, much less my writing. So, but in Arabic, I was literate. I was fine. So you see that it creates problem that otherwise could be avoided, and a lot of international students who come to the US, they study their education from China, Saudi Arabia in particular. I'm not sure, like once they graduate, they really don't succeed in the modern system.
Do you think programs like um, the Hadhramout Foundation, or programs that facilitate for for post high school education, are doing disservice to students?
No, I wouldn't say that. I cannot say that because I'm still like on the midst of it. Maybe at the end of the tunnel, it's better to go through this difficult process. But it is a difficult process. And I think one way it can be avoided. And so far, I haven't really seen any good outcomes out of it. Very few, but they are the exceptions, definitely. Like the rule, I see if somebody did their high school and early schooling, let's say in Arabic, stick with the Arabic exam, and then they came to the US, I haven't seen a lot of these students to succeed in the US context. They will just finish the US and go back home and then try to go back to that system. So to me, you can just like finish your college in that system and that will make things a lot easier.
Would the credentials that they gain from the states give them better chances in Yemen?
Oh yeah, of course, no doubt, and that's why they do it.
Right, because I know a lot of Saudi students. When I was in college, all the Saudi students that were there, their goal was never to stay. I mean,
Exactly.
it's not even an idea for them. They're like, we're just gonna come here and get a degree, then go back home and work, and get all the government benefits that they gain, and live among
Right.
their family.
Yeah, and I really don't like that because like as I said, they just like the Western education system, and in my case, the system of education in Yemen, they really just don't talk to each other. I cannot build in what I already spent 13 years in Yemen. All of that went to waste. Like I have to start here from scratch or from zero, as they say. So I think there has to be better ideas. One, maybe westernized education system in Yemen. And this is what like countries in Tunisia, a lot of countries, like even the English is a language of instruction in some countries. So that makes the transition a lot easier. And I have some friends who come from non-Western countries, but they are Westernly educated. Like they already know the deal. They already know how to write, how to read, how to argue. But if you come and your language of instruction is Arabic, different system, you just like need a lot of help, you know? If you really want to go to the top. Now, if you just like want to get by, that's fine. You see what I'm saying?
But you're too competitive to just do just
Yeah,
fine.
that's the thing. That's the thing. So that's why I found it very hard. Because also, I should say this. You see, when I applied to the master's program, I got accepted almost everywhere.
Okay.
The doctoral programs, man, I had a hell of an experience there because when I was accepted to the Ivy League, I said, I got it. I can get admission to Ivy League. I got into Columbia, to UPenn. Everywhere I applied, I got admitted. But what I didn't realize is that I was paying for that program.
Right.
So you see, there's another thing about higher education system there. Now, when I applied the first time for doctoral programs, now I made a mistake. I only applied to a few Ivy Leagues, but no one admitted me.
Right.
Oh, and then I said, wait a second. So most of them admitted me for the masters, but now for the doctorate, because I applied for a program that they have to fund me and not me paying.
That's very
Then
smart.
I say, whoa, there is a difference. If you want to pay them, they will welcome you because you are a customer. But then I said, if you want to be a producer of research, you want to be an equal, a colleague, an expert, then the game changed 100% because then you're competing with the best American student. And then especially like Ivy League, they only accept one or two for doctoral admission in one department.
Wow.
Yeah. So the competition is very, 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 very hard.
Wow. Yeah, that's a crazy competition. The program that I was in, the writing programs I was in, they accept 6 students a year, and that's already a crazy competition because I think 400 to 500 people apply.
There you go. So like the it's 5% of the admission rate, or even 2%, 3%. So that's also not my point. But then see, the second time I applied, I expanded the schools to which I applied. I included less competitive programs so that I made it. So that now the second time I got some offers fully funded from the school.
So right now you're going for your doctorate?
I'm going for my doctorate. Yeah, you have to pray for me. I'm going to University of Minnesota. It's
Wow,
very cold.
mashallah. Yeah, yeah. Your journey is taking you through a wild ride. It's taking you everywhere.
Yeah, so the University of Minnesota, I'll do my doctorate there, and I'm gonna do research about which we just talked about literacy and language and my experience.
Yeah,
Like for me, and as I said, like there are some scholars who are going in this direction. For me, like my experience is relevant, you see, and that division I spoke about before in Yemen and after, that should be brought to the table if we want to talk about international development. That's my thesis even before I started. I already have.
wow.
No, it's just like I just want to make I want to no, of course I have to use research to substantiate my conclusions, but I really just want to say these international development programs, they want to help students in Yemen. That's their
Yeah,
goal. It's not my words, it's their words. They say we want to help people in Africa, in Yemen. And what do you want to do? They say we want to help them to be educated, to be developed. I take that at its face value and I say it's good. Now I say to them, well, you have some students from those places at your classroom. What are you doing to help them? Nothing. You see what I'm saying? Like, so my whole research is like, if you want to do development, focus on the students who are here. Instead of just like telling me you want to go to Yemen and do a program there, why don't you start with the Yemeni student here and help them to become, to succeed in the US?
this is totally like from the left field. What is it? It's somewhat related. In my work at the Department of Education, their
Mm,
whole thing is to how do we create avenues to reach out to the most amount of parents or families, and the
mm,
struggle that we struggle and the barriers that we struggle with. Firstly, language. So you have like non-English speaking parents
mm,
who can't engage with the system because there are no, there are no bridges.
mm.
And for a very long time, up to until now, it's our biggest challenge. But then one time I saw it, I saw it succeed. Was at a school in the borough that I live in the Bronx, where they hired a parent from the community. She was from Morocco. She spoke Arabic, she spoke English, and she spoke Spanish.
They speak everything in Morocco.
Yes, true. I've been to Morocco. I met a guy who spoke like six languages, but a whole lot different story. Um, and that secretary, they hired her as a secretary. And I visited that school because there was a program there that I was sort of helping with, and
Mhm,
every time I went to their main office, there were like three, four, five, Muslim mothers speaking to her about their students. She's a secretary. She's not even a teacher, but she was like the bridge to the community. And when you were speaking about investing in people who are already here, who are the windows to the places that you want to help, that secretary came to my mind.
yeah, it's not a popular idea.
Yeah.
I'll, I don't know why it is, but I really don't. But maybe there is something to be said about Americans, the white savior. Something to be said about that. They want to go overseas to save people there, and they don't want to save people in their own neighborhoods. Like not only just international students, but like blacks in the U.S. who are catching hell in the neighborhoods, and then you have a lot of programs they want to help people in Africa. Like, why don't you start to fix the issues here in the country, and then go overseas and fix those?
I wanted you to speak about um, something that I read in one of the articles that's written about you. A pivotal moment that you had in Penn
Hmm.
regarding a critique that you received about your writing and how that changed your sort of
Oh,
approach
I
to
see. I
writing.
see. Yeah. Yeah. So professor like told me I need to see. I think he was right. You know, my writing wasn't good. he said you need to see the writing center, or there's another office for students who struggle.
Been there
You've been there. There
a
you
lot
go.
of
And
times.
so
A
a
lot of
lot of
times.
times. So yeah. So I just like that comment just motivated me. It was a wake up call that I wasn't good in English. And I'm not surprised because like even say like now this is my 6th year of reading and writing and speaking in English. So I'm like 6 years old literate in English. 6 years. So that's like nothing. Before that, I didn't do anything. Spoke in Arabic, read in Arabic, wrote in Arabic. So this is 6 years. Like, what do you expect after 6 years? What, you're gonna expect me to write a masterpiece? So I was bad, right? All like non-native English mistakes you can imagine. And he said that I need to work on those. And then I just said, I need to work on those, and I took it seriously. See, this is goes back to Yemen, right? I wasn't doing well at all. And then I said, hey, I need to flip this around. And I think this is something similar now. I'm like wasn't doing good in English at all, and now I'm trying to flip it around where I become good at it.
What approach did you take to make your writing better? What did you do?
Yeah, what did I do? Oh, that's yeah. I know a few people who were successful in this, and they read a lot. They read a lot. So you just have to read a lot. But then I said there has to be another way to do this instead of just reading a lot. Although I think reading is really one of the guaranteed way. You have to read and have to observe how people do it, and then you have to imitate. That's it. Like people when they learn how to speak, the kid would listen, absorb all the words, all the syntax, all the structure, and after a while they'll speak. And they will speak similar to the people who are around them. So if they are in the hood, they're gonna speak slang. If they are in the standard white house, they're gonna speak standard English. So this is just a human nature thing. So with writing, who you're reading. If you're reading the good authors, surrounded by people who are good in writing, you're gonna write one day like them. But I try to find shortcuts because I just said I don't have a lot of time. I need to be good at this as soon as possible. So I said, what can I do? And then I found the scholarship of Gopen. I told you about him. But Gopen, he said that he discovered an approach to make you good at writing without reading too much. I said, that sounds good. He said, I'm just going to show you how readers read. And when I tell you what they read, if you give them a sentence, he say, reader would say, I need the subject of the sentence up front. And then once they found the subject, they ask all this subconsciously. They ask, where's the verb? So they put the subject, or he would say the actor, and then the verb, the action. They need them to be together and at the beginning of the sentence. And then once you get that at the beginning, he say, then the reader say, all right, now we had a subject and a verb. We need to need what's the story? And then they read the rest of the sentence. And if you follow this rhythm, readers will get what you're saying. So and he has like a whole lot of ways. So punctuation, for example, he said, I'm going to tell you how punctuation works. He said, when a reader see a semicolon, they would say, oh, okay. Now, whatever is going to come after this has to be related to whatever they came before. When they see a dash. So long story short, he claims that he knows how readers read. Not all of them. He say the majority. And he said, if you know how the majority read, you can become a good writer without reading a lot of books.
That's very interesting. So that's George Gopen, Gopen. How did you arrive at his work?
Yeah, I think I was like reading some work and somebody cited him, and then I said I need to check him. And then I went and read his work. If you check his books, he is very clear writer. So he's clear. I think this is anybody who reads him will say that he's clear. Whether you agree with his ideas or disagree, this is a different question.
And most of the time he writes about writing himself, or does he have like subject matters that he writes
No, no,
about?
he's an English professor. So he writes about writing. He writes about writing, and he thinks that most people don't know how to teach writing well. Because his main thesis, he say that most programs teach writing from the writer perspective. They say what the writer can or cannot do.
Mm.
He say I need to flip this and teach it from the reader perspective and say when you give a reader a sentence, what do they do with it? And if you know their expectations, and then as a writer, you can either violate or meet those expectations. Now, it's not magic, like you still need to read and write. But I thought that was like, I would say, gave me the most understanding of writing. That's it right there.
I have so many questions because this is just like where my interest is, and I'm trying to like catch one of my thoughts here. Um, you talked about the sentence level stuff, punctuations, the order of the sentence in terms of the like subject and verb. Is there also a sort of order to the paragraph
Yeah.
level?
Yeah. There you go. He has another. Now, to be honest with you, sometimes he makes things like he reduced things like what's the right reductionary approach. Now he say it doesn't apply to fiction, so he's not gonna help you. Is it only apply to nonfiction? He has a whole system. So with the paragraph, he say the paragraph you should start with the issue. So he has four terms: issue, point, discussion. That's just three: issue, point, discussion. So he say the issue is, this is his words. He said the issue is the intellectual geography within which you're gonna make your point. So let's say you want to talk about war. That's your issue. You're not making any statement. You just say, hey, today you said today we're gonna talk about the experiences of Abdurrahman. That's your issue. Then you say the point is your argument. What is your argument? What is your thesis? What is the statement to which we can either agree or disagree? So he said the readers want to see the issue at the beginning, and then you give them your point. And then the discussion just includes everything else: examples, elaboration, qualifications. And then he would give you his expectation. Then he would say, okay, the first paragraph, you should start with the issue. You shouldn't start with your argument all over at the beginning. You say start with the issue and then discuss it. So you say, I'm going to talk about X. The discussion here, you can do literature. You say, okay, scholars B said this said that. The last sentence, he said, put your point. So then say, in this essay, I'm going to argue blah, 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 which people call this thesis statement. It has to be at the end of the first paragraph. So right there, he say any good writing, for the most part, will follow this. Now, he would say good writers can violate this. That's fine. But if you are a beginner, you will do well by following this template.
So stick to the formula until you're able to master it, then you can break the rules.
That's true. And he put it this way. He said, stick to the rules until you become famous. Then you can do whatever you want. And he has a story about this. One of his colleagues like became a New York Times bestseller, and he doesn't follow any of these rules. And he's a bestseller. He said, once you're a bestseller, he said you can do what the hell you want.
Very interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I want you to touch on how, because we spoke about Gopen before.
Yeah.
Um, but before I ask you about how did you connect with him and follow the Buddhism, because I think that's a very not only like a thoughtful skill, but it requires you to like make certain decisions mentally. Before and maybe it's like out of need of necessity that you ended up developing a
All right.
relationship with him.
Mhm.
But his work, did it give you a conceptual understanding of what writing is? Therefore, you're
Definitely.
able to like then dissect it better, or was it a tool of practice where you can go back to the white page and be like, all right, I want to write about subject X, here is the
Both.
formula? Both.
Both. Both. See, Goben, he's a smart guy. He's experienced. and he has a whole system of how writing. He think of himself. He wouldn't mind me saying this. He think of himself as like everyone else is doing it wrong, and here I come along and say, "Hey, you guys got it wrong, and this is the right way." That's exactly what he's trying to do. And he wouldn't. He say it's paradigm shift in his website, and that's what paradigm shift is all about. People are thinking about this way, trying to shift things around. And I would say he is not popular. So that's we can keep that in mind. He's not popular. Like at UPenn, nobody knows him. And I even like talk to my professor. I say, "Oh, do you know this guy?" I say, "No, nobody knows him." And so he's not popular in part because of this, because he's like intimidating. He's saying everybody's not doing it right, and most people don't welcome that.
And he's also offering a systematic approach to writing, while writing is seen as a form of art that's freeing.
Exactly. That's another
So
reason as well.
yeah, um,
So many reasons. So many
yeah.
reasons. Yeah.
When
Like the
did
people in the education department, they don't read his work. First of all, he is not a professor of education. Like when you read his work, there's not like systematic or empirical studies. He's just an English professor writing about writing. And in the English department, of course, they don't like him because exactly is what you said. He's trying to systemize a process that people might see as a creative art. So yeah, he's not popular, but he is popular like on certain spaces, like on legal. Some lawyers like know him. He works with scientists at Duke. He's very popular. So yeah.
I want to get you out of here, but there are so many things that I still want to talk to you about. When did you decide to reach out to him, and why? And how did you do it?
Yeah, I sent him an email. Now, email is not the most efficient way to connect with people, but I didn't have any other contact with him. I guess like why it worked. I sent email to a lot of people, it doesn't work. But for him, I know why it works because I read his work. And if you really know his work and you can demonstrate that, most people will get back to you.
Mm.
Like
And
they feel happy that they could make an impact.
what was your ask, or what was your email?
And me in the email, yeah, I told him I exactly confirmed what he said. I said I tried to improve my writing, didn't find anything helpful, and I found your scholarship, and I found it engaging. And then my ask was, I told him, yeah, I was applying for my doctorate. So I said, would you look at my statement? He said he charged $750 for the hour. I said, oh my God. 750. Wow. For the hour. That's his rate.
Wow.
But he said, I know that you are not gonna be able to pay that. So he was generous enough to do it for free. And then I met with him once and I told him we need to get your scholarship to non-native English. So I guess that's another reason why he liked talking with me because nobody knows him in the native English spaces. Some do, but in the non-native, nobody knows him. You can say that for sure. So I said, why your books are not taught in my ECL classes, English as a second language?
Right.
I said to him, like, at least it should be in the recommended list. And then, we spoke and how we can. I tried to offer him help. So that's maybe you can do that. I tried to offer him help while getting help from him. So I say I might get you perspective on how you can promote your work to the native.
So he probably like that.
Of course, he would like that. And then also, I tried to give him some suggestion to his website. I just tried to help him in different ways. I would read his articles and then say, I have some questions here. Shows that I read it. It
Yeah.
shows I engage with it. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll find typos and say, here's a typo. And he would like, so just like try to be helpful while receiving help. I think that was it.
Yeah, that's like the smartest thing to do, because you making me think of like the relationships that I like had of like mentors that I was on the receiving end all the time and had nothing to offer. And at some point, people get burned out by you, if you're just like asking and asking and asking.
Yeah, you definitely get a give and take, as they say. Even
Yeah.
small thing, like sometime I read his website and found some typos. Now, this website is to teach writing. You should have no typos whatsoever, right? So I could find typos and embarrassing mistakes. And he liked it in his team. And then I pointed out to them and they corrected it. So like small things, because like at my position, what the hell can I offer? Like very little things, suggestions here and there while receiving help from him.
What would be not even your advice about writing in particular, but because I think your journey is very special, is very different, is very hard, and is unlike most immigrant experiences, because you didn't come here and like worked a job, make money, some money back home, and then like you just cruised on and went back home and got married and did the whole spiel of like the typical Yemeni experience. You also did not like come here early, like in high school or before that, to like have sort of the go these the steps ahead to compete with the mainstream, if you will.
Mhm.
You came at a very particular point where you had to like switch literally 180 from one system to another.
Yeah.
What would be your advice for people who go through that?
Yeah, that I can relate with. I always say like really need to have a lot of confidence and uh a lot of what's the word? Resistance.
Mm,
See, like I know some of my Yemeni friends, and they are just like they put up with the system. Like we need to resist, and you need to be confident in your journey. And also you want to be bold. That you want to be better, and you keep working at it.
yeah,
A lot of only I know some people who are really doing it like that, but some of my friends, they are not taking it seriously. They just like, all right, passing by, that's fine. Because like it's hard to compete for them on the system, and never they give up. And that's back to psychology. When a human being is faced by a problem, they could either avoid or embrace it.
yeah,
Sometimes too much, it's too complex, the issue you're dealing with. Like you're dealing with so many issues. Most people just shy away, avoidance mechanism.
yeah,
I don't like that, but so my advice is be to embrace the whole thing and just try to see what you can make. It's hard, because but if you connect with people, like-minded folks, it might be a little bit easier.
yeah. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate your time, and I can talk to you for hours. I feel like there's so much more about your like experience in Yemen and growing up there. There's a little bit more in that. The zero generation concept is definitely something I want to dive into, and hopefully I'll get you on another time.
My pleasure. We can talk another time if you like.
Thank you so much.